Kababayan Today presents a special panel discussion on the tragic events of the mass shooting in Orlando last June 12. Welcome to Talk Tuesdays on Kababayan Today. Mga kababayan, welcome to our show. My name is G. Tanji. 49 people were killed and at least 53 wounded last June 12th when a gunman opened fire in a popular gay nightclub called Pulse in downtown Orlando, Florida. The death toll makes the shooting the worst in U.S. history. The assailant was Omar Mateen, a 29-year-old American boy. He was killed by Orlando police after a 3-hour standoff. Witnesses say that he was a regular patron at the nightclub and had used gay dating websites. Mateen called 911 and pledged his allegiance to the Islamic State of Iraq and Levant, or ISIL. Today we have 3 people in the academic field who speak on behalf of our Filipino-American community on the implications of this horrific tragedy. Starting off with our first and very own Kulturahan correspondent, si Giovanni Ortega. He is a professor of theater at Pomona College, followed by Dr. Anthony Ocampo, our All Things Philam here on Kababayan Today, who is the author of Latinos of Asia. And last but not the least, kasama natin si James McMaster, who is a queer Filipino-American activist and academic. He's pursuing his PhD at New York University, where he focuses on issues of gender, race, sexuality, and performance. Welcome to the show, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, so we are here to discuss this because just because Filipinos weren't part of this mass shooting tragedy doesn't mean that we shouldn't have something to say about it. So our first question to this panel is, why should Kababayans care about this recent mass shooting in Orlando, and how does that relate to us as Filipinos? Let's start off with you, Dr. Ocampo.
Well, I think one of the things that we have to acknowledge out in the open is that we do have members of the LGBTQ community within our own families, within our neighborhoods, within our churches. And if we think about the reasons why these predominantly Latino LGBTQ folks needed a place like Pulse, it's because within their families, within their neighborhoods, churches, they couldn't find a safe space. And I think that the same thing resonates with our own community, where there are queer folks in our communities who don't have a safe space, and they go to places like Pulse. Even if it's not a Filipino queer club itself, many Filipinos all over the country find their home in these queer community of color spaces like Pulse.
Okay, but what happens when a safe space all of a sudden becomes a space where your life is ended? That's exactly what we're talking about here. James, why should Filipinos care about what happened in Orlando on June 12th?
I mean, to piggyback off of what Dr. Ocampo said, I think we make a mistake if we think that gayness, LGBTQ identity is something that is separate from ethnicity or Filipino-American identity, right? We have to remember that there are queer Filipinos, right? Gay and lesbian Filipinos, and that these things work together and operate together to produce our lived experiences of the world and also the struggles that we have to deal with on the day-to-day.
Okay. Gio, your thoughts on this?
Well, first of all, I was actually in Malaysia when I heard about this. So I was in an Islamic country with my best friend who's Muslim, and celebrating Ramadan. So, and it affected me so much because of the situation that I was in. And I also had 2 former students who had just come out of the closet, and they were going to Florida. One was Latino. So the first instinct is, are they okay? And I think as a queer person of color, as Dr. Ocampo said, it is very important that we are very welcoming to our young queer and lesbian, trans brethren, as I call it, because we as queer people of color who are gay have to deal with, number one, being a person of color, and number two, being ostracized within our own community for being gay. You know, one thing I do want to say is being gay is not a sin or a curse. It is a gift. So I think...
Oh yeah, mga Pilipino ha, narinig nyo yan ha? Kasi, I mean, there are still Filipinos that say this, that think this, and that has to stop, okay? When we return, what are the responsibilities that you have to our LGBTQ community in the Filipino-American community? We'll be right back. We'll discuss that.